I want you to just imagine the perfect crime for a second.
Okay, the perfect crime. I'm listening.
Right, but when I say perfect crime, you have to erase all that Hollywood imagery from your mind. Like, completely put away the ski masks.
So no synchronized watches.
No synchronized watches. Forget the screeching getaway cars, the hostage negotiations, the lasers guarding a vault.
Right, the classic Ocean's 11 stuff.
Exactly. I want you to picture an entirely ordinary, maybe somewhat cluttered bedroom.
It's a normal room.
Yeah. And there's a guy sitting in front of a computer screen. The glow of the monitor is just reflecting in his eyes. And then there's a single, completely accidental twitch of his index finger.
A twitch, like he just clicked something?
Just a fraction of a second, a total mistake. And with that one accidental twitch, this guy summons literally the greatest digital fortune in criminal history.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, we carry this deep-seated assumption, right, that stealing billions of dollars requires a mastermind.
Oh, absolutely. You assume it takes an entire syndicate.
Yeah, an Ocean's 11 level of meticulous planning, inside men, flawless execution. But the reality of modern wealth is, it's much stranger than that.
It really is.
Because this story, it completely upends our entire understanding of what a heist even is. I mean, we aren't looking at some master hacker who spent months writing custom malware to bypass state-of-the-art firewalls.
Right, no crazy coding sequences.
No, we are looking at a system failure, a multi-billion-dollar secret hidden in plain sight. And ultimately, a microscopic operational flaw that brought a ghost out of the shadows.
Which is exactly the core paradox we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into the absolute mind-blowing saga of James Zhong and the Silk Road Bitcoin heist.
It is such a wild ride.
It really is. And the mission here for this deep dive is to understand how the impossible actually happened. Because, for anyone listening to this right now, you might think your digital footprint is completely secure.
Right, you feel safe behind your screen.
You might think you have a total handle on your online privacy. But wait until you hear how one tiny, microscopic digital breadcrumb completely destroyed a $3 billion empire.
It is a terrifying lesson in digital permanence.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. In the physical world, your footprints wash away with the rain.
Right.
Or they fade over time.
Yeah, the wind just blows them away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the digital world, especially on a public blockchain, your footprints are cast in concrete forever. You just have to hope nobody ever looks down to match your exact shoe to the imprint.
Wow, yeah, that's a great way to put it. So let's start the timeline. We are jumping back to 2012.
Okay, 2012. So we're talking about the era of the early Darknet here.
Right, the Wild West of the internet. And I really need to paint a picture of James Zhong for you, because at this time, James is a very quiet, somewhat unremarkable guy.
He's not exactly a supervillain.
Not at all. He struggles with his weight. He's pretty introverted. He's definitely not living this life of glamour or excitement. He's basically just a guy sitting at his computer exploring the absolute fringes of the internet.
Like a lot of people were doing back then, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And like many people exploring those fringes, he ends up logging on to the infamous Silk Road marketplace.
Which, to really understand the stakes of what happens next, we have to look at the architecture of the Silk Road in 2012.
Right. Set the scene for us. What was it actually like?
It was essentially the Amazon of illicit substances. A sprawling, massive black market operating entirely on the Tor network.
And for anyone who doesn't know, what exactly is Tor?
So Tor stands for the onion router.
Yeah.
And it isn't just like a private browser mode like incognito on Chrome.
Oh, it's way more intense than that.
Way more. It encrypts your internet traffic in multiple layers, literally like an onion, and bounces that data through a highly randomized sequence of volunteer relays all around the globe.
So by the time it reaches the endpoint, you're a ghost.
Exactly. By the time your request actually reaches the Silk Road server, your original IP address is virtually impossible to trace.
It's completely obfuscated.
Yes. And this infrastructure facilitated a massive multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise run by a very shadowy administrator, the guy who went by the name Dread Pirate Roberts.
Right, the infamous DPR.
Yep. He handled narcotics, forged documents, illegal goods, all transacted using Bitcoin to ensure total financial anonymity.
But the thing is, James isn't logging on to take down the cartel. He's not some vigilante or an undercover federal agent.
No, he's just a regular customer.
Right. He simply logs on to buy some illicit substances for himself. He deposits a few Bitcoin into his internal Silk Road wallet. He makes his purchase, and then he decides he wants to withdraw his leftover funds.
He just wants his spare change back.
Exactly. He navigates over to the withdrawal page, clicks the withdraw button, but his finger slips.
And here we go.
Yeah. He accidentally double-clicks the mouse.
That is literally the inciting incident for a multi-billion-dollar heist.
Yeah.
A clumsy double-click.
I am still so hung up on that detail. A simple double-click. Because when James looks at his wallet balance after that tiny slip of the finger, he is completely shocked.
I can only imagine.
Because instead of just withdrawing his remaining balance, his amount of Bitcoin has doubled.
The money literally duplicated itself.
Out of thin air. It's like magic. And you have to ask, how does a multi-million-dollar dark web cartel fail to have basic concurrent processing checks?
I know, it sounds crazy. But it comes down to a catastrophic vulnerability known in software engineering as a race condition.
A race condition. Okay, walk us through that.
You have to visualize how the Silk Road's internal database actually functioned at that time.
Right.
When a user clicked withdraw, the system had to perform a sequence of checks, step by step.
Okay, like a checklist.
Right. Step 1, check the user's balance. Step 2, verify they have sufficient funds.
Right.
Step 3, send the Bitcoin out. Step 4, deduct the amount from the user's balance.
So it's like if I write a check for $100, my bank verifies I actually have $100, they send the money, and then my account balance drops to zero.
Yes, exactly. But imagine if you could somehow hand 2 identical checks to 2 different bank tellers at the exact same millisecond.
Okay, I'm following.
If the bank's computer system processes requests concurrently, meaning simultaneously, rather than sequentially, teller A and teller B both query the main database at the exact same time.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. The database tells both tellers, yes, he has $100. So both tellers hand you $100. And by the time the database updates to deduct the funds, it's way too late.
Because you've already walked away with the cash.
Exactly. You've withdrawn $200 from an account that only had $100.
So the system just didn't subtract the first withdrawal before it approved the second one?
Precisely. When James double-clicked, the Silk Road server received 2 distinct requests to withdraw the funds within, like, microseconds of each other.
And the server just couldn't keep up.
Right. The system looked at request A and said, process it. And in that exact same microsecond, it looked at request B. Because the database hadn't updated his balance yet, it said, process it again.
That is wild.
It literally materialized Bitcoin out of the central reserves of the Silk Road itself, effectively doubling his internal balance.
So he's sitting there in his messy bedroom, staring at his screen, and he realizes he hasn't just gotten his money back. He has discovered a money button.
A literal infinite money glitch.
A devastating bug in the Silk Road's code. And honestly, the psychological leak he makes in that specific moment is staggering to me.
Oh, it really is, because think about the context.
Right. If I accidentally stole from a global network of narcotics traffickers, I would completely panic. I'd assume they were already tracking my IP. I'd delete my account, smash my computer, and throw my hard drive in a river.
Yeah, you don't mess with drug cartels.
But James leans in.
He really does. He recognizes the magnitude of the exploit, but he also recognizes the risk of detection.
He's surprisingly strategic about it.
Very. Because if he just sits on his main primary account and hits the withdrawal button 1,000 times, the administrators of the Silk Road are going to notice.
Right, they'd see a massive liquidity drain tied to one specific username.
Exactly. Dread Pirate Roberts would see the anomaly. So he pivots to intentional, highly calculated theft.
And how does he do that?
He quickly creates multiple dummy accounts on the market. He starts moving his coins around, setting up these phantom profiles specifically to repeatedly execute this race conditioning fest completely under the radar.
So he's just rotating through accounts, milking the system.
Without raising any massive alarms on any single profile, he just sits there in his bedroom, double-clicking, draining the system from dozens of different angles.
It's basically an invisible robbery.
Truly invisible. Because of the exact nature of the glitch, the system's internal accounting likely couldn't even make sense of where the leak was coming from.
The spreadsheets just wouldn't balance.
Right. The centralized wallet of the Silk Road was just bleeding Bitcoin, processing what it blindly perceived to be legitimate withdrawal requests.
And over a relatively short period of time, James drains the Silk Road of over 50,000 Bitcoin.
50,000. It's just an astronomical number.
I really want to let that number hang in the air for a second for everyone listening. 50,000 Bitcoin. Now, at the time in 2012, Bitcoin wasn't hovering at the astronomical prices we see today.
Right. It was practically pocket change compared to now.
But even then, that haul was still worth a staggering $700,000.
Which for a quiet, unremarkable guy who was literally just trying to buy something online, $700,000 is completely life-altering.
Oh, it changes everything.
But it brings a very dark, very heavy psychological burden with it. Because you have to remember who exactly he is stealing from.
He is stealing from Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yes, he is actively siphoning capital from a massive network of weapons dealers, drug runners, and cyber criminals.
That is terrifying.
If the administrators of that site figured out who was draining their liquidity, the consequences wouldn't be a lawsuit. It wouldn't be a call to the local police. It would be a hitman knocking on his door.
The adrenaline rush mixed with the sheer terror of that realization is just hard to fathom.
It has to be overwhelming.
You are sitting in your room watching actual cartel money flow into your private encrypted digital wallet simply because you clicked your mouse twice.
And you can't tell a single soul.
No, you can't just walk into a Chase Bank branch and deposit $700,000 and say, oh yeah, I made this from a dark web glitch.
Right. The teller would just stare at you and call the FBI. You are holding a ticking time bomb.
A completely radioactive fortune.
You have immense digital wealth, but it is highly, highly radioactive.
Yet somehow, the money completely rewires his reality. He doesn't remain paralyzed by that fear forever. The source material details this unbelievable physical and lifestyle shift that James undergoes.
It's a total metamorphosis.
It is. He goes from being this introverted nobody to a wildly successful, globe-trotting ladies' man. He loses all the weight. He starts dressing impeccably.
A whole 9 yards.
Yeah, he surrounds himself with beautiful women. He travels the world, staying in the most luxurious accommodations, and he throws these unbelievable, over-the-top parties. He literally becomes a playboy.
It just goes to show you that untraceable money acts as an accelerant to whatever desires you keep suppressed.
Oh, absolutely. It amplifies who you want to be.
But the operational security, the OpSec required to maintain that kind of lifestyle is literally a full-time job.
I can't even imagine the stress.
Right. Because how do you explain sudden massive wealth to your friends or to your family? And most importantly, how do you explain it to the IRS?
Yeah. You don't have a pay stub, you don't have a corporate title, you don't even have a fake business.
Exactly. You're throwing a massive party in a penthouse, you're buying everyone expensive champagne, flying girls out to exotic locations. Someone is eventually going to ask, hey, James, what do you actually do for a living?
Right. People get curious.
And you have to construct a flawless narrative every single day.
Right.
Maybe you claim you're an early crypto investor, which is, technically true.
True-ish.
Yeah, true-ish. But you can never, ever reveal the actual source of your initial capital. Think about the intense paranoia that must accompany living like a rock star when your entire foundation is built on stolen Darknet funds.
Must be exhausting.
You are the life of the party, but you are completely isolated in your own mind. Every knock on the door, every single unfamiliar number on your caller ID could be the cartel tracking you down, or the federal authorities.
The guilt and the fear never dissipate. They just get masked by luxury.
A very thin veneer of luxury.
So we fast forward to 2013, and the landscape shifts dramatically. The authorities finally crack the Silk Road.
A massive moment in internet history.
It was huge. The FBI swoops in, servers are seized, and the marketplace is completely shut down. And Dread Pirate Roberts, who turns out to be a guy named Ross Ulbricht, is arrested.
Now, that had to be a moment of incredibly complex emotions for James.
Ow.
Well, the immediate physical threat, the actual cartel administrators who might have been hunting him, are now either in handcuffs or they are running for their lives. The fear of a literal hitman showing up at his door drops to zero.
Right, he can finally breathe a little.
But the digital threat just escalated exponentially. Because the feds now have the servers. They have the internal database of the very system he exploited.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they have the ledger.
They have everything. Yet James just sits on his stolen treasure. He waits.
Year after year goes by. He sits on those 50,000 coins for 7 long years, safely assuming that the trail has gone completely dead.
He thinks he's a ghost.
He really does. The Silk Road is history, the heat has died down, and he genuinely believes he got away with the perfect crime.
Which, unfortunately for him, points to a fundamental misunderstanding of how blockchain architecture actually works.
Right, because it's not like a normal bank.
Not at all. A blockchain is not a traditional bank ledger that can be shredded or burned or deleted by a corrupt manager. It is an immutable, publicly verifiable, mathematically cryptographed record of every single transaction that has ever occurred.
It's written in stone.
Digital stone. The federal cybercrimes units didn't need to chase James through physical space.
Yeah.
They didn't need to kick down random doors. They just had to watch the ledger. They had all the time in the world.
And the government introduces this invisible but absolutely devastating threat in 2015.
This is a huge turning point.
It is. So Ross Ulbricht is officially convicted. And during that legal process, a judge makes a monumental ruling.
A ruling that changes everything for James.
Exactly. The judge determines that all 9.9 million Bitcoin that ever passed through the Silk Road at any point in time are subject to federal confiscation.
Just a blanket confiscation.
Yes. Regardless of who holds them now, regardless of how they acquired them, if those coins touch the Silk Road, they legally belong to the United States government.
That is a staggering legal precedent. I mean, it means James's wealth isn't just stolen property anymore. It is actively, legally condemned by the federal government.
It's officially marked.
Yes. The IRS and cyber forensic teams now have a legal mandate to track down every single fraction of a Bitcoin that ever leaked out of that dark web ecosystem. They are literally hunting ghosts on the blockchain.
And the crazy part is they don't even know his name yet. They are just watching these specific digital wallets where those 50,000 coins are sitting dormant.
Just waiting for them to move.
Just waiting, and while they watch, the price of Bitcoin starts its historic ascent.
Oh man, the charts during this time were insane.
They were. In 2012, his haul was $700,000. But then Bitcoin hits $1,000 a coin, then $10,000, then $20,000.
It just keeps climbing.
By the time we reach 2020, James Zhong is still sitting on those 50,000 forgotten, dirty Silk Road coins, and they are now valued at roughly $3 billion.
$3 billion?
Just let the sheer scale of that wealth sink in for a second.
The scale of that number completely changes the entire nature of the crime. A net worth of $3 billion makes you wealthier than the GDP of several small nations.
It's incomprehensible wealth.
It places you among the absolute richest human beings on the planet. And he acquired it by accidentally double-clipping a mouse.
But he is a multi-billionaire who is essentially trapped in a cage of his own wealth.
Because he can't spend it.
Exactly. How do you liquidate $3 billion of stolen, government-condemned cryptocurrency? You can't just transfer it to an exchange like Coinbase and hit sell.
Not a chance. Any sudden movement of those 50,000 coins would trigger automated alerts at every major intelligence agency and blockchain analysis firm in the world.
The red lights would be flashing everywhere.
Sirens would go off.
Yeah.
The dormant Silk Road whale just woke up. He is completely paralyzed by his own fortune.
And the immense pressure of having that much wealth, and perhaps this burning desire to finally clean it and legitimize it, leads to a fatal error.
This is where it all falls apart.
This is the exact phase of the story where the perfect crime unravels. And it unravels due to a glitch in his own operational security.
In the world of cybercrime, OpSec is a binary game. The authorities, they only have to be right just once.
Just one lucky break.
Yep, but you have to be perfect every single time, every single day.
And James wasn't perfect. To maintain his cover story as an early crypto investor and to make some actual legitimate income that he could spend freely, James operated a legitimate crypto mining setup.
Okay, so he's actually mining clean coins.
Right. He had the hardware, he paid for the electricity, he mined coins, honestly. And in 2019, he takes some of those cleanly mined coins, 118 Bitcoin to be exact, and he sells them on a standard, highly regulated exchange.
And this is a critical juncture.
Yeah.
Regulated exchanges operate under very strict KYC protocol.
KYC meaning know your customer.
Exactly. To offload those 118 legal coins and get cash in his bank account, James had to provide his real name, his physical address, his government-issued ID.
His actual driver's license.
And his social security number. He proved to the exchange, and by extension the federal government, that he was undeniably James Zhong.
And from that totally legal transaction, he receives a tiny, almost microscopic amount of change. Because he didn't spend a perfectly round number of Bitcoin, he gets 0.77 Bitcoin sent back to him to a new, freshly generated wallet address.
Now, we really need to break down the mechanics of how Bitcoin handles transactions here.
Yeah, please do, because it's a bit confusing.
It involves a specific concept called UTXO unspent transaction outputs. You see, Bitcoin doesn't actually use an account balance model like your traditional checking account does.
Okay, so it's not just a single number that goes up and down.
Right. Your checking account just says you have $500. But Bitcoin operates more like a physical pocket full of specific bills and coins. If you have a $20 bill and a $10 bill in your pocket, your wallet software adds them up and tells you that you have $30.
That makes sense.
But when you go to buy a $5 coffee, you don't magically tear $5 off the physical $20 bill. You hand the cashier the entire $20 bill, and they hand you a $10 and a $5 back as change.
So the network takes the whole input and sends the remainder back to you as a brand new output.
Yes, exactly. That 0.77 Bitcoin is his change. It is fundamentally cryptographically linked to the KYC data at that legal exchange. It is perfectly clean money, but it is heavily monitored and permanently attached to his real-world identity.
Okay, so he has this 0.77 KYC-linked Bitcoin just sitting in a wallet. Now, fast forward to November 24th, 2020.
The fatal day.
This is the day the entire empire falls. James decides, for whatever reason, that it's time to reorganize his dirty $3 billion Silk Road stash.
Which is a terrifying logistical nightmare, moving that much heavily flagged crypto. The algorithmic surveillance tools deployed by companies like Chainalysis are incredibly sophisticated.
They are watching every move.
They map out the flow of funds like a giant spider web.
So he knows he has to be careful. He starts a process to obfuscate the trail. He takes a massive 10,000 Bitcoin wallet, which is pure, dirty Silk Road money, and he splits it into 10 smaller wallets of 1,000 Bitcoin each.
He's trying to make the huge, obvious sum look like smaller, unrelated, normal transactions.
Yeah, exactly.
That technique is actually called a peeling chain. You peel off layers of the main sum, sending fractions to new addresses and sending the rest to a change address over and over again, creating thousands of convoluted pathways just to confuse the tracking algorithms.
So he takes one of those new 1,000 Bitcoin wallets and he splits it even further. He sends 500 to one address, 250 to another, and 250 to another. He's shuffling the deck at a frantic pace.
A high-stakes game of digital three-card Monte.
That's exactly what it is. But during this chaotic reshuffling, he makes the ultimate unforgivable mistake. He crosses the streams.
And I really want to clarify how this mistake actually happens because it's so crucial. He didn't intentionally select that clean 0.77 Bitcoin to mix in.
Right, he wasn't doing it on purpose.
No. During one of these complex splits, his wallet software needs to pay a transaction fee to the miners on the network to process the movement.
Just a small fee to make the network run.
Exactly. And modern wallet clients, they automatically optimize these fees by selecting the most efficient unspent outputs, the UTXOs available in the software.
So the software is just trying to be helpful.
Yes. The algorithm essentially reaches into his digital pocket, looking for some spare change to cover the network fee. And it grabs that tiny legal 0.77 Bitcoin UPXO, and it mixes it right into the massive dirty Silk Road transaction block.
Oh my gosh, so the software automatically grabbed the one piece of change that had his actual name stamped on it.
And by merging those legally tracked funds with the illegal, heavily flagged Silk Road funds in a single transaction block, James unknowingly stamped his actual government ID onto a $3 billion ghost wallet.
Unbelievable, because up until that exact second, those 50,000 Silk Road coins belonged to an entity with no face, no name, and no physical location.
Just a random string of numbers.
But because that 0.77 Bitcoin was fundamentally linked to his driver's license at the legal exchange, the blockchain permanently recorded that James Zhong was commingling his legitimate money with the stolen cartel money.
The connection was made.
It is the digital equivalent of dropping your driver's license at a bank robbery while you're trying to carry $3 billion out the back door.
The irony of it is just profound. I mean, think about his journey. He beat the most sophisticated dark market in the world.
He outsmarted them all.
He evaded Dread Pirate Roberts. He hid in plain sight from federal cyber task forces for nearly 10 years, only to be completely undone by less than 1 Bitcoin of his own legal spare change.
A tiny fraction of a coin.
The immutable ledger worked exactly as it was designed to. It just waited patiently for him to make a single automated mistake.
And once that permanent link is made on the blockchain, the authorities don't just knock on the door and ask polite questions.
No, they don't take chances with $3 billion.
They assemble a massive strike team. On November 9th, 2021, having secured a federal warrant based entirely on that single blockchain collision, they execute an overwhelming raid on James Zhong's home.
The shock of that moment is hard to overstate. I mean, he lived with intense paranoia for a decade, but as time went on, The sheer lack of consequences probably lured him into a false sense of security.
Yeah, he thought he was untouchable.
He's living this crazy playboy life, his net worth is astronomical, and then suddenly, boom, federal agents, IRS criminal investigators, and elite cyber forensics teams are literally swarming his property.
They tear the house apart, and what they discover during this raid is absolutely history-making.
A record-breaking haul.
The agents recover 50,676 Bitcoin. At the exact moment of seizure, that haul was valued at just under $3.5 billion.
$3.5 billion.
It was the largest cryptocurrency seizure in the history of the United States at that time.
$3.5 billion localized in a single standard residential home.
And the absolute absurdity of that contrast hits its peak when we look at where the main stash was actually hidden.
This is my favorite part of the story, honestly.
Because when people hear $3.5 billion, they picture a subterranean vault, right?
Armed guards.
Oh,
Biometric retinal scanners.
thick steel doors, the whole 9 yards. But where do the feds actually find the cryptographic keys that control $3.5 billion?
Prepare yourself for this.
They find a single board computer, essentially a tiny, cheap microcomputer like a Raspberry Pi wrapped tightly in a blanket.
Okay, a blanket.
And that blanket is shoved into a Cheetos popcorn tin.
A Cheetos tin.
And that Cheetos tin is just sitting on a shelf in a bathroom closet.
You literally have the GDP of a small island nation tucked between the towels and the toothpaste.
It's hilarious, but also insane.
It perfectly encapsulates the bizarre, deeply contradictory reality of digital wealth.
Right.
Cryptocurrency has zero mass. It doesn't take up any physical space.
Right.
If you had $3 billion in $100 bills, it would fill multiple shipping containers. You'd need a literal fleet of armored trucks just to move it down the street.
A massive logistical operation.
But in the digital realm, $3 billion is just a string of cryptographic text. It can be stored on a microchip the size of your fingernail. Yet because that tiny digital text represents immense real-world purchasing power, it suddenly demands physical security.
And his brilliant solution to protecting a non-physical multi-billion-dollar asset is a snack tin.
It shows a profound psychological disconnect, honestly. He accumulated this wealth so rapidly and in such an abstract way that he never actually developed the physical or mental infrastructure to secure it properly.
He didn't know how to be a billionaire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was treating the greatest digital fortune in history like a teenager's secret stash of embarrassing photographs.
But the Cheetos tin wasn't all they found, to be fair. The feds literally rip up the floorboards of the house, and underneath, they find a concealed floor safe.
Ah, so he did have some physical security.
Yeah. Inside this safe is what we might call his secondary physical loot. They pull out $700,000 in physical cash.
Wow.
They find solid gold and silver bars, and they find 25 physical cassatious coins.
Cassatious coins. Those are a fascinating piece of early crypto history.
What exactly are they?
So, before hardware wallets like ledgers became mainstream, these were physical, actual metal coins created by a developer named Mike Coldwell.
Like a real physical token.
Yeah. And each coin have a private digital key hidden under a tamper-evident hologram sticker on the back. If you peel that sticker off, you reveal the key, and you can claim the actual Bitcoin on the digital ledger.
So it's a bearer asset.
It was a literal way to hold Bitcoin physically in your hand.
And those 25 physical coins alone held an additional 174 Bitcoin. So he's got all this cash, gold, silver, and physical crypto hidden under the floor. He was clearly preparing for a scenario where he had to run.
He was diversifying his paranoia. He knew the digital money on the public blockchain could instantly become inaccessible or flagged by exchanges, so he needed untraceable hard assets to flee with.
It's the ultimate prepper stash for a cybercriminal. But here is the massive twist in the narrative. The feds have the Cheetos tin. They have the hard drives. They have the computers. They have the floor safe. They completely tear apart 2 of James's houses. But they hit a dead end because they cannot find the one thing they actually need to seize the digital assets, the seed phrase.
And we really need to explain what a seed phrase is, mechanically speaking, for the audience.
Right, because it's not just a regular password.
Under the BIP39 standard in cryptography, a crypto wallet isn't just protected by a password you can reset with an email link.
There's no forgot password button?
No. The software generates a master cryptographic key that controls all the funds on the blockchain, But because humans are terrible at remembering 256-bit alphanumeric strings, the standard converts that complex mathematical key into a list of 12 to 24 common English words.
Words pulled from a specific dictionary, right?
Yes, a standardized list of 2,048 words. Words like apple, river, stone.
Okay, that seems simple enough.
It seems simple, but the permutations of selecting 24 words from a list of 2048 in a specific order are so astronomically high that it is mathematically impossible to brute force guess the phrase using current computing power.
So the FBI supercomputers are useless here.
Completely useless. Without that exact sequence of words, the feds just have a useless piece of plastic and silicon in a Cheetos tin. The Bitcoin remains locked on the blockchain, visible to the whole world, but absolutely untouchable by anyone, even the U.S. government.
So the agents search every notebook, every scrap of paper, every digital text file, every hidden compartment in the house. But the seed phrase isn't written down anywhere.
It's nowhere.
It literally doesn't exist in the physical world.
Because James didn't trust paper. He didn't trust an encrypted text file. He took this 24-word master key to a multi-billion-dollar fortune, and he perfectly memorized it.
He built an impenetrable vault inside his own mind.
Think about the immense crushing pressure of maintaining a mental vault holding $3.5 billion.
It's terrifying.
If you get into a minor car accident and suffer a concussion, the money is gone.
Just erased.
If you have a few too many drinks at one of those lavish parties and simply forget the sequence of one single word, the money is gone forever.
Wow.
You are carrying the weight of billions of dollars purely in the fragile synapses of your own brain. Every single day, you have to wake up and silently recite those words to yourself to make sure the vault is still intact.
And now, the authorities arrest James. They throw him in a stark federal cell. And a high-stakes standoff begins.
A classic battle of wills.
Because technically, legally, he could have refused to speak. He could have pleaded the fifth, sat in that concrete cell, kept his mouth firmly shut, and the government would never, ever be able to access that money.
It becomes the ultimate test of human endurance against the massive machinery of the state.
Who blinks first?
Exactly. The government has physical custody of his body, but he has the keys to the kingdom locked safely inside his mind. They cannot extract a thought with a search warrant.
They can't compel him to think out loud.
Right. The Fifth Amendment protects you from self-incrimination, but the courts have debated heavily whether compelling a password is the same as compelling testimony. It's a massive legal gray area.
The source material details this incredibly grueling 6-month standoff. 6 long months of James just sitting in a cell. And the immense physical and psychological toll of federal incarceration just cannot be overstated.
It breaks people.
It does. The isolation, the relentless daily pressure from interrogators, the stark, visceral realization that his globe-trotting playboy lifestyle is permanently over, replaced by concrete walls, steel bars, and total sensory deprivation.
You really have to consider the psychological breakdown of a man who used to fly around the world with beautiful women, who is now facing the brutal, gritty reality of a federal lockup.
He wasn't built for this.
No, he wasn't a hardened cartel boss. He wasn't some military-trained operative conditioned to withstand psychological interrogation. He was a quiet, introverted guy who got unimaginably lucky with a double click.
Yep.
Throwing someone like that into a federal holding facility, subjecting them to relentless pressure, threatening them with decades in a maximum security prison,
Yeah.
the mental vault is going to start to crack.
He couldn't hold out.
He was holding on to a fantasy that he could outlast the entire United States government.
And eventually that fantasy shatters. The breaking point finally arrives. After 6 agonizing months, James capitulates. On March 25 of the following year, the standoff ends.
He gives in.
James agrees to give up the mental vault.
He trades his memory for leniency.
In exactly 5 separate digital transfers, James voluntarily hands over the seed phrase, unlocks the digital wallets, and transfers the entire multi-billion-dollar fortune over to the total control of the U.S. government.
He hands over everything.
It is a profound moment of defeat. The ghost is fully excised from the machine. The dark legacy of the Silk Road, the billions of dollars generated by a sprawling criminal enterprise, is fully absorbed by the state.
And the verdict that follows this raises a lot of really complex questions.
It really does. Because of his quote-unquote voluntary cooperation in handing over the keys, because he just gave them the $3.5 billion without forcing them to attempt the impossible task of breaking an unbreakable cryptographic standard pressure, James is sentenced to just 1 single year in federal prison.
1 year. I find that deeply, deeply unsettling.
It's shocking.
It raises an incredibly important question about how our justice system handles white-collar and cybercrime versus traditional physical crime.
Yeah, let's talk about that double standard.
If you walk into a local bank tomorrow and steal $3,000 with a handwritten note, you might get 10 years in a maximum security prison.
Minimum.
James Zhong stole $3.5 billion from an illegal narcotics empire, laundered it, hid it, lived a life of extreme luxury fueled by criminal proceeds, and he gets 365 days in a minimum security camp.
It feels incredibly transactional.
It is entirely transactional. Is the government just treating him like a highly profitable, involuntary asset manager?
That's exactly what it looks like.
He inadvertently secured a massive fortune, held onto it securely while it appreciated by thousands of percent, and then neatly handed it over to the Treasury. The government literally walked away with billions.
A massive payday for the feds.
Giving him a one-year sentence feels less like punishment and more like a commission fee for services rendered. It sets a bizarre, almost dystopian precedent. Steal a little, go to prison for a decade, steal a few billion, become a massive government benefactor, and do a few months at a summer camp.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't actually end with his incredibly light sentence. Let's look at the ultimate outcome here. In the middle of 2024, James is released from prison.
He's a free man.
He serves his time, he walks out of the prison camp in Montgomery, but the reality of his freedom is incredibly stark because he is completely, totally broke.
The government didn't just take the Silk Road Bitcoin.
No, they took everything. The sources we're diving into are definitive. He was skimmed completely. The government essentially stripped him down to zero.
They wiped him out.
They kept the billions in crypto. They kept the $700,000 in cash from the floor safe. They kept the silver bars. They kept the solid gold. They took the physical Casasius coins. They dismantled his entire life.
Everything he'd built.
He went from being a globe-trotting, multi-billionaire playboy to a guy with absolutely nothing, walking out of a prison camp into a world that had completely moved on without him.
The cycle is totally complete. From an ordinary, unremarkable guy to a king of the digital underworld, and right back to an ordinary guy with completely empty pockets.
A crazy full circle.
The money was basically a digital hallucination that lasted for a decade.
And there's one final agonizing what if that just haunts this entire narrative for me. And this is the number that really twists the knife.
Oh, the timing of his release.
Yes. We know he surrendered the coins when they were worth about $3.5 billion. But think about the timeline. He was released in mid-2024.
And the crypto market hit a massive all-time peak in 2024.
Exactly. If James had never made that fatal mistake with the .77 legal Bitcoin, if his wallet software hadn't automatically grabbed that specific UTXO to pay a tiny transaction fee,
If he had just checked his inputs.
if he had never crossed the streams, and he had simply held onto his secret stash in that Cheetos tin until 2024 and sold his Bitcoin at the market peak, his net worth would have been over $5 billion.
$5 billion.
He would have possessed untouchable wealth, and all of it lost because an automated software process grabbed the wrong tiny piece of digital spare change.
It is a profound tragedy of his own making, wrapped in a high-stakes cyber thriller.
It really is a movie waiting to happen.
And it proves that in the modern era, the greatest threats aren't physical force. They aren't guns or getaway cars. The greatest threats are data points,
System architectures.
automated optimizations, the absolute inability to remain truly anonymous in a hyper-connected world where every single action leaves an immutable trace.
It's sobering. Think about the device you are listening to this on right now. Think about the laptop on your desk or the phone sitting in your pocket.
We carry tracking devices everywhere.
We really live in a world where the physical rules of wealth and power have been completely rewritten. A single mistaken double click of a mouse can make you a billionaire overnight.
And a single microscopic digital breadcrumb, a tiny fraction of a coin automatically linked to an ID can erase your entire existence, leaving you with nothing but memories of a ghost ship made of gold. It forces you to completely reevaluate the fragility of your own digital identity. Every interaction you make leaves a trace. But more importantly, it forces you to examine the extreme limits of human endurance.
Yeah, the mental toll.
James Zhong built a multi-billion-dollar fortress entirely inside his own mind, and in the end, it couldn't withstand the pressure of a concrete cell.
So I want to leave you with this thought today. If your entire life's fortune, literally billions upon billions of dollars, was locked behind a cryptographic sequence hidden only in the fragile synapses of your brain,
Just 4 words.
and the full weight of the United States government was crashing down on you, locking you in isolation, tearing your life completely apart. Would you break, or would you hold the keys to the ghost ship forever?